Hey everyone, I'm Joe and today I'm going to be doing a book review of The Steerswoman by Rosemary Kirstein. This is a fantasy book and it is the first book in a series. There are currently 4 books in this series. It is planned to have 6 eventually. Books 5 and 6 are apparently written, but they haven't been edited yet, so hopefully they will be released in the next few years. I greatly hope they will, because books 1 to 4 were fantastic. And I'm greatly looking forward to finally finishing this series off, which was, as you can already tell, fantastic, and I loved it more than I can say. Although I'm going to hopefully make a good attempt, considering this is a review. So this book and indeed series is classed as fantasy. However, it is much more than just mere fantasy, because whilst on the surface, especially in the earlier books, this appears to be a fairly traditional fantasy world, it becomes apparent as you read through the series that this is more than that. It introduces significant and notable science fiction elements into the world in really interesting and unexpected ways. And overall, I'm really curious where this series is going to go, because by the end of the 4th book, this book is much more than fantasy by a long way. This is more like half fantasy, sort of about 3/4 fantasy and quarter science fiction in some ways. It's really quite curious, and I'll talk about it in a minute. So first of all, I'll explain the main character. The books follow a woman called Rowan. She is indeed a steerswoman, and indeed the steerswoman of the books, because obviously she's the main point of view, although there is more points of view than hers at certain points. She is a very intelligent, very independent, and very sort of strong-willed woman. The Steerswomen are a loose organisation of sorts, of mainly women, although there are a few steersmen, and their aim as a society or organisation is to travel around the world and essentially just find out as much information about essentially everything as you could ever conceivably want. Essentially, they are compiling a version of Wikipedia, in other words, and they're now aggressively going about it and hunting down this information and creating this massive filing system of everything that you could want to know about the world, its people, the environment, and everything else. This is obviously a massive job. They've been doing it for thousands of years. You get the impression, you're not entirely sure how long, but it really has been a long time, however. And obviously this is not something that can ever end, because of course the world is always changing, therefore the information has to change with it, and obviously their job has to continue because they need to find out new relevant information. Although presumably at some point they will reach a sort of a critical point where they know all the general history of what's gone before them, and then it will be a bit easier because then they just have to keep up to date with anything that is currently going on. Now, the way that the steerswomen get this information is to quite simply go around and obviously investigate it and look at it themselves, but also to ask people and have people answer what they're asking. If you do not answer their questions, unless it's something weirdly personal, they might let you off in that case, then there's a problem though, because their sort of rule is if you don't answer them or indeed lie to them, then you'll essentially be blacklisted, and no steerswomen in this organisation will ever answer any question that you ever ask them ever again, even if it's something extremely trivial. Can you help them with something? They just won't answer at all, and they'll still talk to you. They won't ignore you, but if you ask them any sort of vaguely mild suggestion or question, they'll just say, oh, nope, I'm not answering, and walk off. So, and considering the amount of information they know, this is not a good position to be in, because the information is extremely important and encompasses a lot of the world. You can benefit greatly from knowing their information on, for instance, seasonal weather in other continents. You can then grow the right crops, for instance, at the right time of year and sell them to other locations for more money than you otherwise would, because of course you might not normally know what other areas are lacking, so you might be trying to sell something that they've already got a decent amount of. And basically this translates into many other areas as well and makes the steerswomen extremely powerful in their own way, although in some ways they are also powerless in a way because they are not an aggressive organisation. Of course, they just wander around on foot, exploring and finding information, so they've got no direct power, but because of what they know, they are quite influenced by themselves. Another powerful group in this world is wizards. Now, the steerswomen and the wizards don't particularly like each other, basically because the wizards, due to their knowledge of magic, which the steerswomen do not know about, they will not answer any questions asked them by the steerswomen. This means that basically by default, all wizards are blacklisted automatically, pretty much. And whilst they can talk to each other, they don't genuinely like each other because it's just very awkward, because they both know that the others won't cooperate with each other. Steerswomen, obviously, idea of knowing information is having a major flaw when they can't find out anything to do with magic or even the most basic principles. It's just not something they can know anything about, and this is somewhat frustrating to an organisation that prides itself on just that ability. So as far as the plot goes, Rowan at the start of the book, as I said, is a adventurous scholar essentially, and she's very independent. Some of the tasks that she has are set by the other steerswomen, and indeed the sort of upper sort of controlling side of the steerswomen. However, often the steerswomen can just explore on their own and just find out things about a particular area, and indeed use their own initiative. And indeed, in this regard, this is what Rowan is doing, because she finds this blue gemstone. Essentially, it's quite an unusual blue gemstone, and she realises it could well be magical, but she's not sure. And obviously she knows that the wizards will not tell her directly, so she basically goes off on an adventure to try and find out more about this gemstone, and this sets in motion a whole series of events which obviously lasts over the course of the next 4 books, all of which have quite different settings and ideas in them, and are frankly each fascinating in their own way. Over the course of the books, starting from the first book, she is joined by another woman called Belle, who is a outskirter. Outskirters are essentially sort of barbarian type characters, or at least that's what they appear to be on the surface of it. However, you quickly come to realise that Belle is not just some athletic or muscle-bound idiot, frankly, that goes round and causes fights and generally warlike. She's not that. She's indeed extremely dangerous by herself, and obviously with Rowan she's even better because they work together well, and their relationship is frankly fantastic to see. But she's much more than meets the eye, and she's indeed a great character. Another character that joins them in the first book and kind of is in the other 3 but only very lightly is a character called William, who is a young man who has some interesting parts to his past and indeed has some interesting abilities, but I'm not going to go into that because, well, that's what reading the book is all about, finding out what's going to happen next. All the characters are done extremely well, they're described well, they interact well, and the psychology of them is extremely well to boot. They interact with each other and indeed the world around them in a way that actually makes sense. The world building and the overall world that the books are set in is also fantastic. You're not given excessive amounts of detail, but then again you're not given no detail. You're given enough to know a general outline of the world and some basic ideas on how things sort of work, but you're not given great in-depth detail about, for instance, particular kingdoms or the way the various areas of the world interact with each other. You sort of know that this is a traditional sort of fantasy, sort of somewhat medieval kingdom, and it just works in the background. It just sort of works whilst they're going about their adventures. And frankly, that fact makes the books somehow better because you don't need this information in some cases, and these books do not need this ongoing description of the world. The world is there, and the characters are going through it. You're told what you need to know, and you're given some ideas about what other things could be. but that's about it. You know, it's about the characters and about what they are trying to achieve in this world, and about a sort of journey of self-discovery, essentially. So the world is kind of secondary, which is unusual, but I liked it, and it does really work well in these books. Relating to the characters and indeed the world being, I just want to comment on the characters and their personality types. All the characters in this book fit within the environment that they're in. However, unlike some fantasy books where you have certain personality types and they'll be fixed in certain positions and that's the only location in the world that you'll find them, in this, that doesn't follow that rule, which I think is frankly stupid in some fantasy books because it's too fixed locations. People don't automatically live in certain places. People are everywhere and nowhere. They live where they need to live to manage to live their life. So you'll have a great mix of characters of all personality types and professions and jobs and everything else in every single location. Some places will have more of a certain profession or a certain type of personality type than others, you know, due to the landscape or whatever the needs of the area may be. But it's still more varied than some fantasy books, and frankly this really does work well in this case because everything about this book works well together, frankly, because the characters are done extremely well, the world is done extremely well, everything works between these two extremely well, and the plot is intricate but not over complicated. You know, it's still somewhat believable and it still leaves things open to interpretation, to the reader's interpretation, which I greatly like. So overall, I loved this book and indeed the overall series. I'm greatly looking forward to the other two books. This has everything you could want from a fantasy book, frankly, and I would greatly recommend this to fantasy fans as well as anybody wanting to read a fantasy book with a little bit of a twist due to the sort of science fiction aspect of it, which is done in a rather different way than I'm used to, and I expect I won't see this again for some time, frankly, because it's not a usual way of writing, but it is a brilliant one, and I rate this book very highly indeed, and I just love these books overall. Anyway, so that is it for this review. If you've read any of these books or indeed would like to, then please leave me a comment in down below and we can have a conversation. All my social media links can be found in the description box below, as they always are. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.